Welcome to the Recovery Stories podcast, bringing you stories of hope, healing, and triumph over the bondage of addictions, mental health struggles, trauma, and dysfunctional family systems. Our courageous storytellers have chosen to live their journey out loud in order to show others that they don't have to suffer in silence. The stories you will hear are raw, real, and may involve graphic and triggering content. This podcast is brought to you by Promises Behavioral Health's rooted alumni community. If you or a loved one are struggling, have questions, or are ready to take the next step, call our admission center at 877-351-7504 or visit us online at www.promisesbehavioralhealth.com. Our team is ready and waiting to answer the call for help.
Hey everybody, and welcome to this episode of Recovery Stories. My name is Patrick Custer and I'm your host. I'm so glad to be here with you today and have our special guest and one of my good friends in life and in recovery, Darren Hobbs. Welcome to the show, Darren.
Thank you for having me on, Patrick. Remix, man. We're gonna get it right this time.
Yeah. So none of y'all probably know this, but we had a little technical difficulty, and this is the second time around Darren and I are trying to get this recording done. So he's definitely a trooper for coming back and making this happen. I'm really glad we're doing it. So
thank you for having me, man. If there's any technical difficulties, it's probably my bad. So hopefully smooth sailing today.
Man, we'll make it work. So, all right. Enough of the intro, all that. Let's get to your story, and start where you started.
So, I guess the deal we're supposed to get into is what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. To frame it up, I'm a child of extreme privilege. My mom stayed at home. My dad worked a lot. I didn't hear the word no very much. The ism, the hole that we talk about that seems to be common with us that we try to fill with medication, process, whatever. My hole was there as a young kid. I remember I was 6 when my family moved from Knoxville into Nashville. And I remember leaving all my neighborhood buddies and their moms that I was so tight with and going to a new school and day one, what's your name? And I'm so scared that I'm swallowing my tongue. I'm so scared to be out of my comfort zone. And, man, I would have given anything to not feel that way, and, as a young kid, I remember the first house we lived in. I can remember, practicing in front of this mirror that stood in my bedroom. I can remember practicing like childish cut downs that I was going to say to these kids that I was afraid of. And, I'm doing that really alcoholic thing where I'm having both sides of the conversation. Right. Mm-hmm. I was doing that at, 6, 7 years old. So, I can look back from this point and say that, I was going to get here, I was earning my chair at a young age. Yeah. And, I was very comfortable being under my mother's feet. Or around my dad, not so much my dad himself, because I was kind of a little bit scared of him. He was kind of big and loud, but all his buddies who always seemed to be around on the weekends. Right. And I would get to, when everybody needed a fresh beer, they'd say, Bulldog, go get me aluminum. Right. And that meant, Darren, go get me a beer. Mm-hmm. And they'd open it. I'd deliver and they would open it and I would get the foam and maybe a little bit out of the neck, but that was the taxes. So at, a young age, I'm, drinking probably the equivalent of a few beers on any given session. I liked it.
Did you remember feeling anything from like when you do that? Did you ever get a buzz, or was it spread out enough to where you never really noticed it until later?
I think that I probably did get a buzz, because even as a kind of another piece of the ism for me was I could never go to sleep. It took me hours and hours as a young kid to go to sleep. Mm-hmm. But those nights that I remember, all my uncles in the living room, game day, Saturdays, Sundays. I remember going to bed happy. When it was time to go to bed, it was time to go to bed. And I'd sleep, I think, I wanted to be one of those guys. I wanted to play cards and have chips in front of me and have beers and have all the phones ring around them. You know, it was just part of what I saw growing up, and it looked fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. So, as you grow older, as as a young guy, you're. I remember I'm trying to remember the things we talked about last time. Lead us into your adolescent years up to age 10, you becoming a teenager. What was that like for you?
So as I got a little bit older through grade school, I figured out how to. I'm extremely freaked out at school. I feel like I'm less than just about everybody. I'm bullied a little bit, and I would do the trickle down bully thing where somebody would pick on me, and then I would take that out and go pick on somebody else. And so I kind of learned if I bark real loud, I might not have to bite. And then I figured out, I don't know, third, fourth, fifth grade that getting into fights wasn't the worst thing, and at the end of the day, it kind of made me feel cool to be like the bad little dude,
Yeah.
and over time, kind of people kind of left me alone over that stuff. My comfort in that age range was if I was competing in something or directly tucked under my mom's feet. So either or. Other than that, man, I wanted to withdraw. And this looked a lot like my life in addiction later on. I wanted to withdraw. I could either like get completely sucked in with a book or a video game or a TV or a movie. But interacting with others, man, that was way too much anxiety for me because of this overriding sense of I'm not good enough. Like you're better than me. You're not going to like me. So why should I try? Going up into the kind of, middle school years, I had a really bad knee injury when I was in the middle of my 8th grade year. My kneecap went on the back side of my leg, and I had brought surgery and pain pills. And, I figured out pretty quick with those pills, and I think they were hydrocodone, Vicodin, whatever they were. I figured out those pills pretty quick that, my Sega was more fun. I'm old, Sega, right? Sega,
so when you say Sega, explain that for our younger generations. What is that?
Man, that's apples to oranges, primitive video games, right?
Yep. Okay.
2 buttons and a joystick, with cords. And if the game got too worn out, you'd have to blow in it and do a secret dance to make it work. But that everything I did was more enjoyable, right?
Yeah.
My Pepsi tasted better. My dad's beers tasted way better, and seemed to have an exponentially stronger effect than normally due to the meds that I was on. I had more confidence to, again, I'll date myself, pick up the phone with the cord on it and call, my buddies or that girl. None of that was as scary for me once I started down the path of pain pills. And that stuck with me, I rode those all the way through high school, but really started mixing those with marijuana and daily alcohol. Probably a year later was when I got to where it became a daily thing to mix substances. And once I figured out how not to throw up drinking, our article number 3, Darren's I'm old. We drank Zima before we could really get a hold of beers, which is kind of like some of the hard lemonades now, like Sprite with alcohol in it. So once I figured out how to drink without looking like a rookie, man, I drank to black out. That wasn't a byproduct. That was the target.
How many Zimas you probably don't remember this? So I was going to say, how many Zimas did it take you to get to that happy spot?
Man, I think that window is pretty wide. But if I could get 6, I could make it happen.
Yeah.
Back in those days, my friends were probably a little more selective, but I didn't need it to be cold. I didn't need it to be good. I just needed it in my belly,
Oh yeah.
And I think like looking back is like hindsight 2020. I think we all probably have these little like snapshots that really are kind of stark reminders of who we were, like even, starting off. I remember coming home. I had a good buddy who lived a few houses up from me, and I had reallocated a neighbor's open garage door. He had some beers there, so I reallocated those to my stash. And it's dark. It's after basketball practice on a weeknight, and I'm standing in the snow, shivering, trying to drink room temperature beer, right?
Uh-huh.
And it's freezing. I don't have clothes on for any of this, but I remember this sense of peace and ease that made its way down my throat, down my body. There's no way, there's no way the chemicals could affect my bloodstream in, a matter of seconds like that. But my sense of relief was immediate.
Yeah.
And I always knew that, the first couple always knocked the chill off or knocked the edge off for me.
So moving forward through school, were you having consequences? Is this high school you're in at this point?
Yeah, I'm a high school kid. And as my high school days kind of went, I got a little bit more reckless. Had some brush ups with mom and dad, but at the same time, really manipulative on my end. So the elephant in the room was that, and there was at one time, there was a medicine cabinet with tons and tons of pain medication in there. And I was blaming the cleaning service people. The reason why they would come up missing, and it was me. I was running my prescriptions hot, and just went through the family stash. Some had been expired for years, but they weren't thrown away. My parents had a pretty extensive collection of liquor. They didn't drink liquor daily. My mom drank none, but my dad didn't drink liquor in the house daily. But they always had enough to have parties and have folks over, and be able to have an open bar. And those bottles started disappearing. And I did the same thing. I'm starting to get dents on my car, and my stories don't line up anywhere. And I was just able to bark just loud enough to kind of keep consequences at bay, right?
Yeah.
And that's really like the story of like going up to like towards the end of my high school. I remember making a decision there early on in my senior year. I was down to like my last chance with our basketball coach, and if you ask me then what's the one thing I can do without, I can't do without, it's basketball. And so down to my last chance, and I really want to go get high this one day after school, and I know that if I miss practice, I'm done, right? And consequences like almost in hand, I took the consequences to go get high. I knew what was going to come. Like there was no wiggling out, and I chose to go smoke weed and not go to practice. And so I was done. And that's like one of the first marks of like I'm taking the low-lying fruit. It's going to feel good now. I'm going to do it, right? No matter what it costs.
So I remember some similarities there in my story, and I'm just curious, because you were younger, in our parallels were not at the same age, and so I'm wondering at this point, did you when you sobered up after this specific period you're talking about, and getting let go from the team, was there a sense of like overwhelming guilt and shame that washed over you, or was it just denial and
I think outwardly it was like I'm a victim, right? Because
right.
the coach is mean and he has rules, and then deep down I knew it was just being part of. That was like the thing that I was part of, and it was had been part of the school year, and like it had just been part of my identity.
It was one of the main it sounds like one of the main ways that you found connection, that you found safe enough to
yeah, like being short and insecure, and I didn't like my hair, I didn't like my teeth. I mean, I didn't like any one thing about me, but all that was gone when we're playing and we're practicing, and I felt connected to my buddies, and I felt like not being part of that year really started to separate me from the few healthy friends that I had. One of whom's now my business partner, but I kind of took myself out of that group, and that's when things started to really go downhill for me. I evaded consequences for the most part, but drinking, smoking, taking pills every day. I don't know how I didn't get caught. I didn't, because the lessons kind of had to get stockpiled and hit me all at once for me to learn. You know, I'm a tough learner, but I don't know how I lived through it either.
Yeah. Yeah. So, clearly you made it through, and you made it through high school. What, I think it's interesting because you made it, you were in some ways a high functioning addict through your academic career, right?
I was, up until I got to Tennessee, the University of Tennessee, where I had zero accountability, right?
Yep.
I had some money I could, in my checking account, like graduation gifts. I'd worked all summer, and I got up there with zero accountability, and man, I just couldn't function. I was really jealous of my buddies who could go out and have fun and do the pledge thing like I was doing, but then they would go to class. Like, who can do that? You know what I mean? Because again, if I start drinking, I'm going until I can't stand. And, I probably weighed 110 pounds. So it didn't take a whole lot to get me running, I remember early on that semester, maybe halfway through, I called my dad, and before I picked that phone up, I really wanted to tell him that I'm an alcoholic and I got to come home. And what I ended up telling him was, I'm really homesick and there's nothing really wholesome for me to do here. And he was like, he's a tough guy from, he's 70 now. So like, he's raised by a World War II guy. He's like, work harder. You're gonna be all right. Love you. Bye. Click. And that's really who he was. You know what I mean? Like, he could have his fun on the weekends and do whatever he wanted to do, but he was in the office by 5:30 on Monday. And so for him to think something other was needed for me was just a foreign language. And so kind of a pattern for me is that during that time and kind of early on in sobriety I had a hard time speaking up for myself and really being vocal about what I needed. And
and if I could interject here, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like what I experienced as well is addiction being so alive and strong in kind of taking over, regardless of how good we are on the inside and our desire to make good choices. It's almost like something else is in control, making up something else is talking for us, creating a story, said exactly what you knew your dad wanted to hear at that moment. I mean, I did the same thing with my parents, and just speaking to that, I feel like no matter if it's a parent watching right now that's struggling believing that because you don't want to believe your kid's an addict, or you're an addict active in an addiction, having a hard time admitting to yourself. But you're hearing what Darren's saying, you're like, yeah, I kind of know what he's talking about. I mean, this is what we do. It's normal when you struggle with addiction. It just comes out of your mouth, right? Like you barely even have to think about it. And it's maybe not what our heart wants to say, no matter how good we want to be. Right.
Mm-hmm. And, it's funny too, because, moms and dads never, and especially mine, they never wanted to believe that I really had a problem. Right. Mm-hmm. It's way easier and more comforting to believe that I'm just lazy, or I've got some anxiety and depression weren't really as talked about as they are today. Yeah. But maybe he's just anxious. Maybe he's just depressed. Maybe, it's you attach the current results to symptoms. Well, maybe he's heartbroken because his girlfriend isn't with him, or his good friends from high school aren't in town, whatever the deal. Right. But at the end of the day, and I told him this far into my 20s, like, hey, I'm the people you guys warned me about, I didn't realize it until I really knew it, but I'm the person you guys told me to stay away from. It's not their fault.
Yeah.
And that was like a really jarring thing for them, and going through those early college years, I fell out of college, and I started this process that I would like rinse, repeat, cycle year over year. I would typically murder a Christmas, right? I would do something so terrible, like crash a car, tell a big lie, get drunk at Christmas, something, right? So I would murder Christmas. That first spring, I got introduced to cocaine, And that's where, like, I tried cocaine one time on the back of a CD case in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And the only question that I really wanted answered for the next 13 years was, where can I get cocaine?
Mm-hmm.
That, like, my life was in servitude for more coke. That's it. I'll tell any lie. I will deceive anybody. I will put my parents' freedom on the line. I will defraud whoever I got to defraud as long as I've got coke. And it became my master.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy how, and I think granted, we see this a lot with, all kinds of addiction, but especially, I don't know, I'll tell you, because this is where your story and mine is somewhat similar, is that, I was heavily addicted to alcohol and uppers. Mine was Adderall, but, it's still an upper and, similar to cocaine. And it wasn't until I started doing uppers that, I became a completely different person and did things that I said I never thought I was the type of person that would do any of that stuff.
Right. And it turns out we're exactly the kind of people that do all the things we said we never do, right?
Right.
It's a short list of yes.
So, I said this last time and I'll say it again. 13 years. Like, if you don't know anything about cocaine, listening or watching right now, 13 years to be an active cocaine addict is bizarre, to say the least, because people don't make it that long being, running and gunning on cocaine typically. So what did you do? What happened during those 13 years? And tell us a little bit about the consequences you experienced and all that.
Yeah. I truly am I'm a lot like the guy described in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, a jaywalk, right? I know this for those who haven't read the book. There's a friend who has a queer sense of fun, right? And he keeps running into traffic and he keeps getting hammered by the trolley. And then he wonders how he got there, right? So one day he walks out of the hospital. He's determined he's never going to jaywalk again. And boom, he gets whacked by the trolley. And that's me. I was truly never able to put together the fact that I was allergic to chemicals or that my mind was obsessed with chemicals. I could only identify the reasons why I would be miserable anyway, right? Mm-hmm. My parents were too controlling. My grades all are crap. My friends are successful, and I'm not. I don't have her or whoever, right? Just like this complete place of my skin is just the most uncomfortable place to be. Mm-hmm. So I continue to medicate. And, this from 20, I'm 20 years, 19, 20, all the way to 32. There are these attempts to finish school. There's arrest, there's jail, there's lawyers, probation. It just rolls over, right? And it's just like this unending story of sames, just in the same pattern. And I'm 32 years old. I'm doing an insane amount of coke every day. I'm drinking myself stupid every day. I'm going on like these 3-day tears where I'm up and I'm rocking, and then I'll go down. I'll take something that'll knock me out for a day. I'll do it again, and that's really like the last 9 months of my using life. I'm running a bar on downtown Broadway, and I've got it made. As far as drug addicts go, I've got it made, right? I'm selling drugs. I'm making money. I've got a bar. I've got a license to print money out of there too. Man, I'm miserable. I'm walking around.
When you say you have a license to print money, what do you mean?
If anybody from alphabet agencies, I was not counterfeiting money. I had money at my fingertips, right? So,
gotcha.
For me in addiction, money was the thing that kept me from being happy, right?
Yeah.
If I just had more money, I could buy more drugs and I'd be happy. Yeah. And at this peak of addiction, I had a bar job that I could work as often as I wanted. I was probably less than honest with the cash that came in through my hands.
Yeah.
I'm selling drugs out the side of the bar. I'm making plenty of money, and I have all the product in the world in front of me. And my parents probably knew that I was off and running again, but I'd kept them pretty insulated. And all my real friends were pretty much done with me. I didn't keep up with them, and
because at this point you had been to treatment once, right?
I'd been to treatment as a freshman in college. Nice little winter break there, and then I went again when I was 27ish. I was married in that laundry thing I did a little while ago, but it wasn't for very long. God bless her. And then 32 rolls around, and I don't have much connection with anybody who really knows me anymore. Like really knows me. I'm ashamed of where I'm at. A one-time sponsor had kind of towards the end had me meet him actually at 5925, and he asked me, he was like, "So what's it going to be like when you crash?" And I told him all about my setup, and he was like, "Man, you're flying a plane right now that doesn't have a landing gear, and you're not gonna skid to a stop. You're gonna bounce." And I thought about that, and I was like, "Man, you're right," And it's a spring day, the week before the flood, the biblical flood in 2010, and I'm running this little hole in the wall bar down on Broadway, and this nice man and a lady, they'd come in and they were having just a Coke and a smile. Thought that was kind of odd for happy hour, but they were really nice and really engaging, and they'd ask me about my dog, and then I do a illegal transaction in the stairwell. And as I'm coming back around my bar and I'm putting up my supply, I hear Metro detectives, "Put your hands in the air." And I turn around, I'm like, "Who's getting arrested in here? This is awesome." And it was me. Boom. I got tackled. I'm on the ground, and I see his face. I see her face, and I hear, "We've been listening to you. We've been watching you." And then I see this third face kind of peer over me. And this guy had been in there for 2 or 3 weeks watching me every night. And "We've been listening to you. We've been watching you." And man, I just wanted to die.
Yeah.
I knew my life was over. I'd bounced in and out of jails long enough to know, like, country jails, like where, country Goodfellas, like I'm in East Tennessee, and my best buddy's aunt can bring me Cracker Barrel, right? Or I can use my own debit card and order pizza. What I had just signed up for wasn't going to look like that in downtown Nashville, And I get to jail after a couple hours of questions, and they put me in front of the nighttime magistrate. And I heard the words that you never want to hear if you're selling drugs, and I heard school zone, or sale and distribution in a school zone, right? And that made what I did the equivalent of a murder charge. And so here I am, 32. I've had all of the opportunities and advantages a kid could have, and I'm screwed. And I'm starting to believe, really for the first time, that a smile from my mom and a check from my dad can't get me out of it. And a few days later, I kind of drive that home. I'm still in jail, and I realized that my face was about to explode with like old cocaine and everything that gets cooked up in that whole like storm. And so I'm trying to get to the bathroom where I think I'm going to throw up, and I think my face is going to explode. And as I'm trying to like get this thing out of my face, I fall in the floor there in the Davidson County Jail downtown, and I'm in a river of God only knows what in the restroom there, and I'm throwing up on myself. And it's like I'm watching this from like a closed circuit TV.
Yeah.
I'm watching this idiot who's had every single chance to get right. Treatment 3 times, family that loves him, friends that have forgiven him. And this dummy just couldn't figure out that if he had admitted he was an alcoholic and a drug addict, that solution was there. And in that moment, man, I knew it. I knew that I didn't become a prince of a guy overnight. Shortly after that, I'm on the phone with my mom and dad telling a very untruthful side of the story. Like, mom, dad, the cops came into this private cigar bar that I was working and they found drugs there. And since I was the only employee, they blamed me. So come get me, come get me. And
back to the addict brain, just spewing out
survival, right?
Fabrications. Yeah.
And my dad my mom came on and she was like, look, I've had enough of your drama. I can't watch this anymore. You're dead to me. And I'm a mama's boy. Right. And all I could hear at that point was my mom telling me no. Right. I didn't have any insight into how much sleep have I stolen, how much joy, how many of my mom's friends does she duck at the store? How often does she just not answer her phone because she doesn't want anybody to ask about me? Right. Like, I've really, really severely impacted their lives. But all I can think at that point is my mom's not giving me what I want. Right. And my dad comes over the top and he's like, hey, man, this is not what the police report says. It says that you agreed that you were the supplier and that you took all the blame. And we're tired of watching this. We can't do it anymore. He's like, call me in 60 days on a Sunday and I'll answer. And he taught me something that I actually use in my professional life now. He told me, he said, we'll talk for as long as you're positive, but if you start complaining, the call's over. And I tried it. About 2 months later, I called and I started bitching about my, the snoring and the noise and, the unfairness of how I'm being treated or whatever martyr trip I was on. And
right.
He hung up on me. And he didn't answer when I called back. He answered the next Sunday. And he taught me that I could, he started to teach me that I could take my problems to him after I've gotten in the solution and he would hear me out. And it's one of it's kind of a building block of kind of where I started to go in recovery. Early on in that jail trip, man, I needed, there was one guy that I figured would come and visit me and his name was Larkin L. I know, Larkin.
Yeah.
And, the deal to get a visit was you needed an address and a phone number. And somehow I knew his address because I'm kind of Rain Man, but I couldn't remember his phone number. And this guy is getting out of he's getting bonded out, and he's like, "Hey, who needs this blue book?" And that blue book is the big book, right? And I jump at it, man. I need that book, and he gives it to me, and I open it up, page 1, Larkin L 615 . I still know the number, right? But that's like direct from upstairs, right? I'm supposed to find that, and
I have. Pause. I've never heard this part of your story before. How cool is that?
It's the coolest. That's
awesome.
It's the coolest. And like when I texted him the other day, I was like, hey man, just thinking about you. But yeah, dude, like that happened to me, right? Like I'm drowning in this sea of misery and crap. And like, here's the lifeline. Boom. Just what I'm looking for. Right. Yeah. Like I'm under the rock, right? And hope just kind of finds me. And, wasn't because I'm talented, wasn't because I don't play the deserve. Like, how did they find me? But my luck has never been that good, so it's probably not of me. So from that moment, man, like small little like hope snacks just started trying to find me. And I was able to get on the phone with him and he agreed to sponsor me and he agreed to come visit me. And we started working Steps recovery program right there live from jail. And I made a deal with myself one night, like, hey man, you can lose at life again. That's cool. But we're going to do it honest. We're going to try to do it nice. I don't want to lose the other way anymore.
Yeah.
And I had Larkin. I had one other guy. His name was Murphy. He's a normal guy, but bothered to keep up with me while I was in there. And man, like letters from those guys were just like finding treasure, like being stranded on a desert island and finding a bottle of cold water. And as time went on, like I still haven't been sentenced, and I'm looking at a really severe penalty. Like 12 years was the first offer from the DA, and And man, it's just like all like the daily transactions and drama, man, I'm just getting more miserable and more scared and more sure that I'm an alcoholic and that if I ever got a shot at life, it's going to be because I'm in recovery. And as the days go on, man, I got to that point that I was sure, like, hey, it doesn't matter if it costs me five, it doesn't matter if it costs me 10. I'm an alcoholic in recovery from this day forward. And and that I know I've screwed up probably every day since then too, but we've got a program, right? I'm around guys and I get instruction of how to right what I'm doing the wrong way, and over time I improve how I live life, right, and how I'm connected to the man upstairs, and how I treat other people, and from that early day of committing to this, there was this, like, the last bit of my delusion died one night. I was still sure that the sheriff's deputies were keeping me from all of my mail, from all of my friends that must be writing me their letters, right? Because how could everybody not be so upset that I'm locked up, you know? And mail call comes and goes this one night, and I'm probably 3 or 4 months in. I'm already starting to work with a sponsor and work a program, and I know that I'm an alcoholic, but I'm still delusional. You know how we kind of hold on to some of that stuff for a minute.
Oh yeah.
And mail call comes and goes, and they don't call my name again. And I went and asked them. I was like, "Hey man, you didn't call my name. I'm expecting some letters, man. Y'all got to be holding back on me." He's like, "Man, nobody knows you but your mama, you know." And I realized, man, he was right. You know, nobody cared. It wasn't that nobody cared, right? I'd burnt my bridges.
Yeah.
And that was a clincher for me. It kind of brought me to a low point. I know I'm about to cry in front of 100 guys, and my cell was number 63, and it was in the back corner of this pod in the A pod A2 at the Davidson County Jail, and I could look out this real skinny window and see the planes take off from B&A. And so that was my plan. I was going to go look at the planes and calm down. And on the way out down there, man, I'm starting to cry. And so I pull my shirt up kind of over my head to hide the fact that I'm crying. And I get down and I'm going to act like I'm praying. And I hadn't said an honest prayer since probably, since I was made to in church, right? So we're talking 20 years. And I cried every tear that I had out right there. And I think it took a while. And I was so lonely and so scared. And I knew like I was at this intersection of complete misery and complete loneliness. And I said what I think turned out to be I didn't know the third step prayer at that point, but I said a real like Sanford and Son version, like, God, I know you won't change these walls. I know you can't change the noise. I know you can't change the COs or my outfit, but please come into my life and change me from the inside out so that one day I can walk out of here better than I am today. And man, he did. It wasn't like he hit me with lightning and I was, I had blue jeans and street shoes on again, but hope started finding me, man. As soon as I committed to this process, the universe found me. God sent other kids to prop me up, and it's what happened. A few months after that, I got a plea that was going to be give me a year day for day with a big sentence on the back end, and if I screwed up at all, I'd have to take the whole thing, right? So over the life of the sentence, if I think I've still got a few months. If I screw up in the next few months, I'll go and I'll have to do 12 years. And so this meant I'm going to get a shot, at life.
Yeah.
And the next, I get out. My sponsor comes and he picks me up, and I got a little bit of money left. I give it to a halfway house operator, and man, there's day one. There's drugs on the dresser, and I raise my hand and I tell them what's up, and they move me to another house. I get over there and there's more stuff going on, and I raise my hand, and they told me to go ahead and leave, and the point of the story isn't so much that I got treated poorly, and I did get treated poorly, but I learned how to fit. I asked guys in the program to help me. right?
Mm.
I didn't throw it in my mom and my dad's lap. They weren't taking my calls anyway. But I had to learn to grow up, and so I did, and I think that had been missing in my other attempts in recovery, right? I didn't really have to get it because of this cushy safety net,
Yep.
right? Now I'm calling, Jason B, and he's put me on the couch for a few days. Now I'm actually like making calls on my own behalf to figure out where I can live. I've got to go to work or I don't get paid, These are all things that I've never worried about because I could always go, defraud my folks.
Mm-hmm.
And so like this whole first year, it's like I'm holding the big man's hand and I'm just on an adventure, I'm just guided. And I got to know, it's when you and I got to be friends, was that summer of 2010 or 2011. And like our whole crew that we just kind of like exploded with, like we all started getting healthy. We all started, going to the same meetings. We're having fun. We're getting our first apartments and, like all the cool, exciting stuff that we all got to like your win was my win. And I won't name anybody else, but like their wins were our wins. We all enjoyed it together. And it was like, man, this is what I always looked for in drugs and alcohol, like belonging. It like out of nowhere, like I didn't even know how to ask for what I wanted. And here it is.
Right.
It's beautiful.
So let me draw some, I love to sometimes like when I hear parts of somebody's story, just like simplify it down and say like, is this what I'm hearing? So like at this point, I hear three major themes that are just making the difference for you. Radical acceptance or surrender, which looked so different than your attempts before. So you're accepting like, right, everything, like you said, that you really didn't feel like had been in place before. Asking for help and not from your parents, realizing that learning to ask for help on a, like, I own my shit today.
Right. At 33, right. It was time.
Right.
Like alarm clock's been going off for 15 years. Right.
Yeah. Yep. And then the whole connection piece, which was the last thing you were talking about. And kind of drawing a circle back to, heck, when we first start using and drinking, we're a lot of times that's what we're doing to find that sense of relief, with other people. But also, I mean, it sounds like, when the first healthy form of connection you were experiencing was like playing sports and stuff, and you lost that. So, it's really cool how the program and sobriety and recovery brings that stuff back to us, that we just as humans are hardwired to need. Right.
Yeah. And I think for me, the common, and I've not, I can't say that I have always been the greatest meeting attender, right? I've had seasons where I'm in meetings every day, and I've had seasons where I'm not. But the common denominator that keeps me grounded is my connection, right? Mm-hmm. With the guys and the girls that kind of stand me up, and that I get to stand them up, whenever I've got something heavy going on in life, and that phone kind of feels heavy. It's a new miracle every time somebody calls to check on me, right? Yeah. In our own ways, like I truly believe it's like a universal truth. If I try to, in my own awkward, silly, clumsy way, if I try to be useful to God's kids, then He sends other people to look after me. Mm-hmm. And it's been true every day of my recovery.
That's awesome.
Like it's better. It's far better than what I deserve.
Yeah. I can second that in my own life as well, for sure. Yeah. So, all right. So I'm trying to remember. I'd written these down and I couldn't find my sheet from last time we did this. But all right. So what was one thing that you did not expect? Something that you were surprised with as a positive outcome of recovery that's a blessing in your life today, that you never would have expected before you got sober?
My son, my family, my son. I didn't expect that I would ever. I figured that my relationship with my parents and my brother and his children was irretrievably lost. And for good reason. Like by the time I was a free man, I realized that I'd put them through too much and that I got what I got. And, maybe they might be able to forgive me one day. But I was prepared to just run with you guys and maybe work a couple of fast food jobs and get a motorbike. And maybe that sounded like a great life. And a few months in, my mom called me, and I'm laying in a really, really dirty halfway house. My phone's right here, and my mom's number pops up. It's a Friday night. It's about 9:00, and before I could even push the green on my Cricket Deluxe phone, right? I'm crying.
Cricket.
I'm crying, and I said, "Hi, Mom. Hi, Mama," and she was quiet, and she said, "I don't like you right now, but I love you. Maybe we can come see you soon." And I'm just at that point, man, I'm it's game over. And I said, I love you, Mama. I miss you so much. And she said, "I'll talk to you soon." Right? Hung up. And a few weeks later, man, my mom and one of my very best friends from growing up came to see me. And we were able to start a relationship from there. And I remember right when I got out of jail, my nephew came. My dad took me to see my sister-in-law, my niece, and my nephew. My nephew ran over to me, and he's like a baby bro to me. I wouldn't know what to do without him. And he runs over to me. He's a little kid. Runs over to me. He says, "Roon, I'm not supposed to love you anymore. Don't worry, I still do." And that, like, it really hit me. Like, man, like, I have put my family in a position to shield these dudes, these little bitty sweet children, from investing their time in me because they're scared I'm not going to be there. I'm going to hurt them,
Yeah.
And man, to like realizing that and feeling my way through that, and I wanted to choke my brother for a little while because that instruction probably came from him, but he's right. Like, I can't even be around my niece and my nephew. Like, I can't be trusted like that.
Yeah.
And I never thought that I would have enough money to stay high and take care of a child. So I'd completely written off the possibility of having a family. And I have a 3.5-year-old son who is, the sunshine of my days, man. He's the sweetest dude. And, I get to take the way I was raised and parented, and kind of take what worked for me and what didn't work for me. And, I get to give it to him in the best package that I can. And to me, the greatest gift I've been given is to be a dad.
That's awesome. So, he's what a great kid. He's so cute. So, all right, my last question for you is, what would you say that person that's listening and watching today just felt like they really identified with your story? What piece of encouragement would you like to leave them with?
Man, I would say anybody out there that identified with anything that we've talked about, hit a meeting, call your friend that's in recovery, look for similarities. It's really easy. It's really easy when we're on the outside looking in to qualify ourselves out of the circle, but it's so easy. It's so easy to just get in. If we look for ways that are things that are similar in our peers, we can find them. If we want to find similarity, we can. If we want to qualify ourselves out, we can do that too. And I can promise, like, if recovery had anything to do with talent or looks or effort, somebody like me I'm probably high or drunk right now. The only thing I can control was my willingness. And I got to that point. That's why I'm here.
Speaking of being here, before we close out, I wanted to ask you to share a little bit about what you are not only active in recovery, but like myself, are working in getting to work in the make a living, changing lives in recovery. So tell us a little bit about the company that you started and what you're doing these days in treatment.
So I have the privilege really of partnering with my best buddy, Ryan. I think he actually beat me on this show by like 2 years, but I'm not.
No, it was not 2 years. It was probably 4 months.
4 months. All right. So Ryan and I started an intervention company about 5-6 years ago, and intervention, case management, companion work, mostly in Middle Tennessee in the Southeast, but all across the country. And we spun that into sober living and spun that sober living into the Nashville Recovery Center. And we get to the NRC is a physical anchor for all things recovery in Nashville. We host everything from sober drag shows to dog fashion shows, 12-step meetings of all varieties, family workshops. And it's just a cool place to just come and hang out, celebrate a good day, process a not so good day, and kind of live through the middle.
Yep. It's really an awesome place. So how can, if anybody wants to connect on the platforms, how can they do that?
We're easy to find. We have the longest URLs in history, but NashvilleRecoveryCenter.com. You can always find out what we're up to on Facebook as well, Nashville Recovery Center, and then Music City Interventions. If we can ever be useful there, MusicCityInterventions.com.
Cool. Awesome.
Cool.
Darren, thanks so much. I really am grateful for your friendship and that you're my brother in recovery. We've been through a lot of life together at this point, and so it's cool to add this to the list. So
yeah, man. Well, I hope to get back in the gym like you one day soon and start feeling better. You look great.
I hope so. I hope that for you too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
Yeah,
all right. Well, hey, thanks for everybody watching, listening today, or if you're listening or watching this on replay. I know that there's a lot of power in this story, and I hope that you get something out of it and put it to use. So with that, I just want to remind everybody how I like to close out and say that it's never too late to start loving yourself, and you're only one decision away from a completely different life. So with that, we're out.
For more information on today's episode, check out the show notes. Recovery Stories is brought to you by Promises Behavioral Health's rooted alumni community. If you or a loved one are struggling, have questions, or ready to take the next step, call our admission center at 877-351-7504 or visit us online at www.promisesbehavioralhealth.com. Our team is ready and waiting to answer the call for help. Whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please share with your friends. Follow, subscribe, and leave us a review. We are grateful for you and hope that you have been encouraged by today's episode. As always, remember you are only one decision away from a completely different life, and it is never too late to start loving yourself.